We salute you. Oh, sorry. We salute you as the Anti-Imperialist Front from Turkey and are very happy to be here. American imperialism, NATO, is destroying our world again, this time by arming fascist neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Right now, we have comrades of ours in Donbass from the Anti-Imperialist Front and also the revolutionary band from Turkey, Group Yorum. They are there as part of the anti-fascist caravan to break censorship and gather the truth. They send their solidarity to you all. It is vital we all unite against NATO American imperialism, which is occupying Syria, organizing coups in Latin America, and waging war on the peoples of the world. They call us terrorists, but the real terrorist is NATO America. We must spread the truth. We must struggle against imperialism and its collaborators. As the Anti-Imperialist Front and People's Front, we greet you all, and we pass on our greetings from the revolutionaries of Turkey, and we'd like to finish our speech with the words that give us hope. Haklıyız, kazanacağız. We are right, we will win.
Comrades, our struggle is becoming more and more significant every day, with every comrade contributing to this discussion. And us people are facing everywhere the hard truth that they simply cannot obtain a secure supply of basic necessities under the present economic system, under capitalism. Never mind being able to feel optimistic or being happy with our lives and have a peaceful enjoyment and a feeling useful and fulfilled. In Britain today, what do we have? We have a tiny class of billionaires, of finance capitalists, who have profited during the COVID pandemic when we lost our jobs, who still profit enormously, using all this wealth that they accumulate over generations and generations and passing it on to their children to carry on. Carry on what? Carrying on plundering the countries that we heard from today and exploiting us. Yet, in this same country of this tiny billionaire minority, we are the workers and we produce the wealth. They refuse to put our needs first. They refuse to heat our schools. They refuse to employ more teachers to take care of the children of the working class, therefore putting us all in danger. They refuse to fund the NHS. They keep privatizing the NHS. They keep privatizing schools. We bear the brunt of this crisis, and it is not of our making. Of course, we know that this crisis is global because it is a capitalist crisis. It doesn't only affect us, but it affects the poorest countries in this planet, the poorest workers, and there are poorest workers than the workers in British society. Still, both us in the belly of the imperialist beast and across the world, we have the same message to say, the same message. And we need to make it plain and clear that this system does not work. This system, the capitalist system, does not work. In Latin America, as we heard from all of the ambassadors, there is such a long history of oppression, but also such a long history of resistance. And we need to remember both the crimes of the colonizers from Spain, from Portugal, from Holland, who were just replaced by a more ruthless modern imperialism, the imperialism of Britain and the imperialism of the USA. And these are our main enemies. The USA is public enemy number one. They are the terrorists. And of course, we have a Euro-Atlantic axis of evil. We have a NATO-led quasi-Nazi, quasi-fascist, fascistic, let's call it what it is, fascistic imperialist alliance to fight. And what it does, at the beginning, what American imperialism tried to do is offer a hand of friendship. But on the back, behind the back was the gangsters, those who appear to be friendly, and then their plan becomes clear what they want: to loot, to dominate. In Latin America, the story is long. As we heard, experts of this story. It started with the US President James Monroe and his doctrine, his famous doctrine for the Americas, claiming for his masters the sole right to loot and control the resources and policies of every part of the Western Hemisphere. From that day to today, the history of Latin America and the Caribbean has been a story of subversion of democracy. This is the way they export their democracy, by making people lose their lives through sanctions. We also have assassinations, mysterious illnesses, plane crashes, the buying of elections, the control of the media, of the military and the judicial systems, and then the outright invasions and occupations. They use mercenaries, they use fascists. These are their proxies. No human cost is ever enough for imperialism to consider and stop. This is what we need to understand. It's a simple truth that is key to understanding what we are faced with and what are our tasks. We must give up on the idea that things can be reformed in a more human way. Because this is the human logic. This is what people think, that you can persuade and convince someone to treat you better. But this is not the logic of capitalism. The logic of capitalism is violence, is not caring for human life. Marx long ago explained that in the present economic system, the capitalist becomes the personification of his capital. He loses all signs of his humanity and acts relentlessly and only for his interest, and he will not stop. There is no appeal to humanity or rationality here. And the logic of capital, which is of course also the logic of imperialism, is to expand. It will never stop. We cannot restrain it. If given the opportunity, it will keep exploiting forever, until this planet does not exist anymore, until there are no children left. It will keep exploiting, it will keep expanding. And all that, whilst we have the rulers of our world getting richer and richer, and the rest of the humanity getting poorer and poorer, the economic system will not stop. We will stop it. It cannot be suppressed in any other way. It must be destroyed. As socialists, we must remember, and we must study, and that's what we do. We must remember the words of the great Lenin, the master of the revolutionary theory and practice, whose party, the Bolsheviks, was the first to show humanity that the workers could be organized. It is not enough to unite by feeling. It is not enough to unite by sentiment. It is not enough to unite because we hate injustice. We need to be united and organized in a specific way so that we can become truly an independent force that is able to defeat the imperialists. And how do we unite? Do we just unite people who agree in this country? Is that enough? No. We must unite, Lenin reminds us, with the hundreds of millions of oppressed people around the world. Who are struggling against the same enemy. And we heard it today from the countries that are struggling in the everyday, and we do have the same enemy. Our ruling class is their oppressor. We fight the same enemy. These rulers of the NATO imperialist alliance, they are emboldened. They are launching, they have launched the project, of course, of the new American century. Why? Because they had no real opponent. Because we had the collapse of the Soviet Union, and that emboldened them tremendously. After this collapse, what did we have as a result? Supreme arrogance, supreme sense of invincibility. And that meant that the USA was able to embark on a true carnival of destruction that saw the crimes of Yugoslavia and that bring us to today. What we see is imperialist engendered crimes. We must put a stop to them. We must stop the crimes against humanity. Clearly, they hope that we are not able to do that. Clearly, they hope that with their propaganda, we're going to be confused and we are not going to be able to stand on one side. But they are not achieving this. The Global South knows who the enemy is and who we need to unite with and to show solidarity with. So it is the duty, as we said, of the platform and of all the parties who have signed the declarations and who will sign the declaration of Caracas, that I'm now going to read to you, is going to be read simultaneously, as I said, by a Vice Chair, Jody Brar, there in Venezuela. So this platform will try to disperse the lies, disperse the confusion, and give clarity to the movement. And in this, we communists need to be at the forefront. We must bring theoretical and ideological clarity. We must say that to brand imperialists, to brand Russia and China and even Brazil and Venezuela as imperialists is ridiculous. We have to call it what it is. It is part of their psychological, it is part of their ideological warfare that they are waging against us. And the only antidote is theory. is Marxist-Leninist theory. An organization in Marxist-Leninist terms. And for that, first it takes study to understand why this is the only way to do it. Then it takes commitment, which is very difficult in the world of today, where capitalism has fragmented our lives, has turned us into individualists. But even smaller meetings like this, because we have a very clear strategic aim, are very important. All the people who are here today, all the organizations represented, all the parties, and especially the countries, the socialist countries we heard from, we can unite our activities around a central program. We can really come together to maximize our actions. People like Samuele, workers who come from other parts of the world and live in London, who produce the wealth of this great city. We can come together, and our actions have the power to disrupt, to defeat the aggressive criminal NATO imperialist bloc. They are afraid of us. And if we unite, our victory is assured. Venceremos. I'm now going to read to you this historic declaration that is being read simultaneously in Caracas today. Standing here in Caracas at the heart of the Bolivarian revolution and of the struggle for unity, to liberate our Americas, we feel the weight of 2 centuries of the Monroe Doctrine, through which the USA appointed itself the sole colonial master of this continent, gradually pushing to the margins first Spanish and Portuguese colonists and later British financiers. Whether oppressed via direct rule, as in Panama, via proxy, as in Pinochet's Chile, or via economic stranglehold, as in debt-laden Argentina, the people of Latin America and the Caribbean have known none of the peace or prosperity their anti-colonial forefathers fought for. People here can well understand the desperate humiliation of the workers who once lived in the proud and independent Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine, but who lost their last shred of sovereignty in 2014 after a second US-backed coup removed their elected government and placed a fascist junta in power. The story of a US-controlled puppet government whose role is to oil the wheels for corporate looting of the economy, close down all opposition parties and media, and oversee the training of a fascistic proxy army to be aimed at independent-minded locals and neighbors alike, is not a new one to all those of the continent of Latin America, who have everywhere struggled to throw off Uncle Sam's suffocating embrace, from Guatemala and Colombia to Chile and Peru. But this story of oppression is also a story of resistance. Through 2 long centuries, the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean have fought back and continue to do so. Sometimes they have resisted through armed struggle, as in the Haitian Independence War, the Cuban and Nicaraguan revolutions, or the People's Wars in Guatemala, Peru, and Colombia. Sometimes they have carried out mass uprisings in the streets, as we saw only recently in Bolivia. And at other times, in different conditions, they have fought their revolutionary leaders into office via the ballot box, as they elected Comandante Hugo Chavez in Venezuela or Comandante Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua. 1,000 times over, the people in Latin America have proved the truth of the words of the great US freedom fighter Paul Robeson, when he said, "The people's will for liberation is stronger than atom bombs." Or as the Cuban people coming together in 1960 after the victory of the revolution, who wrote in the Havana Declaration, "This assembly condemns the imperialist monopolies and enterprises which continually plunder our wealth, exploit our workers and peasants, bleed our economies to keep them in a backward state, and subordinate Latin American politics to their designs and interests." Assassinations and coups from Ukraine to Colombia and all across the Western Hemisphere prove decisively the words of Comrade Lenin when he proved that imperialism seeks domination, not democracy. Everywhere we look in the world, we are presented with proofs that the anti-imperialist governments of Russia, China, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and Iran are right to brand the US imperialists as agreement incapable. From their broken promises to their indigenous people of their own territory, or the broken Treaty of New Granada from the 19th century until today, the USA has never kept the terms of a treaty that it felt powerful enough to ignore. Since imperialism cares nothing for human suffering and has no interest in the logic of reasoning of human beings, since the only language it understands is the language of force, there is only one route open to the masses of the world who seek relief and liberation: to stand together and create a force too strong to be ignored or overthrown. As many revolutionary fighters have found out, the imperialists are not as strong as they seem, if only we know how to stand up against them. That is why the revolutionary and progressive governments of Latin America worked so hard to create a network of regional institutions such as ALBA and CELAC, which can bring together the oppressed nations of Latin America and enable them to cooperate respectfully with one another, to stand together against US economic and military coercion, to stand up for the rights and dignity of their peoples. Not for nothing did Comrade Fidel Castro greet the founding of ALBA with these words: "Who should be the proponents of this idea? Venezuelans. Because Venezuelans launched it on the American continent, because Bolivar is Venezuela's son, and Bolivar is the father of the idea of the Union of America's people." Understanding the need for the maximum possible unity against imperialism was what motivated Brazil to join in the formation of the BRICS alliance, which now stands at the center of the new world order that is struggling to be born, and which the Yankee gangsters are so desperate to strangle in its crib. That is also why some progressive governments of Latin America have begun to engage in military cooperation with independent Russia. And it is why so many have welcomed the infrastructural, technological, and development cooperation offered by People's China. especially via the western section of the Belt and Road Network. Understanding the truth of the words spoken by another American freedom fighter, Malcolm X, who pointed out that if we let them, the newspapers will have us hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. Progressive governments across the region have funded anti-imperialist media like Venezuela's Telesur and Cuba's Granma, which work to expose the propaganda lies of the US monopoly-controlled media and their local stooges. Propaganda that aims to keep our people confused, distracted, divided, and weak. In the words of Comrade Fidel, what is the fate of the Balkanized countries of our America if they don't join together, if they don't integrate? Let us also remember the words of another great son of the Americas, Comrade Che Guevara, who looked at the US defeat in Vietnam and saw what it meant for the whole of the oppressed world, saying, what a luminous future would be visible to us if 2, 3, or many Vietnams flourished throughout the world with the repeated blows against imperialism, obliging it to disperse its forces under attack. Comrades, the outbreak of war in Ukraine has drawn a line across the globe and clarified the question of who stands with whom for all who care to see it. It is time for all those who seek freedom to let the people know that we have a side in this war, which the imperialists are waging to save their position as the masters of our suffering world and to keep the rest of us as slaves. Just as the imperialists are huddling together in the face of their economic crisis, trying to save their position and their system, so the oppressed and exploited masses of the world must join together and find strength in unity and victory through resistance. Let the imperialists tremble at the prospect of the world's peoples, united and risen. Let us do everything in our power to defeat this enemy of humanity once and for all. And let us remember, as we come together, the bright future that awaits us on the other side of the victory. And the words of Karl Marx, that we indeed have nothing to lose but our chains and the world to win. No cooperation with imperialist war. Defeat to the NATO-led imperialist alliance. Victory to the resistance. Yankees, go home. For this historic meeting to actually come to its its conclusion, I would invite everyone here to come on stage and hold the banner that asks for defeat for the NATO-led imperialist alliance. And we are going to be spreading this message across our media and indeed the website of the World Anti-imperialist Platform to unite with other actions that are taking place in other countries right now. Thank you.